Welcome to Angular Interview Questions Part 3. In this session, we'll be seeing around 51 questions in each of these topics: lifecycle hooks, routes, forms, route guards, authentication, modules, and deployment. Okay, these are the 51 questions we are going to see. So let's proceed with the each of the topics.
For this topic. Okay, so what is the first question? What are lifecycle hooks and how many hooks we have? What is a lifecycle hook? If you take a component, there are different stages. Okay, in a component we have different like initialization and content creation and view completion and destruction. So we have different stages. So these lifecycle hooks are being facilitated by Angular so that you can make use of different stage in the component life cycle actually. So when you write these lifecycle hooks in a component, Angular will call those methods at that stage. Okay, if you want to do certain things at maybe once the content is projected, content is created, you want to do something, you can make use of that. Or when you can do a cleanup activity when the component destroyed. So there are different life cycle stages. Life cycle of a component, different stages can be. You can write these methods so that you can do some actions, whatever you need at that stage of a life cycle of the component. Okay, hope you understood. So we have around 8 stages. Okay, we have first stage is ng on changes. So this ng on changes is the first life cycle method. So this is called whenever the at input from the parent is changed. Okay, from the for a component, whenever the at input of the parent is changed, this ng on changes is called. Okay, so this is the first method, and it is called whenever the at input is changed from the parent. Okay, and the parent changes the at input, the input which is projected from the parent to the child. So this method called every time, and it also has gets a parameter from which you can know that what was the previous value and what is the present value. And next thing is ng on it. We use it frequently, right? So ng on it is called when the component is initialized. Okay. Third stage is ng do check. This is called whenever the digest cycle happens in the for the component. Digest cycle is nothing but this is the cycle responsible for binding your values, okay, from the class to view and view to class. So this digest cycle happens whenever the Angular feels some changes possible to happen. So it will run the digest cycle. So you can use this for doing some changes which you have not informed to Angular. Okay, maybe a div which does not have a event listener. So the Angular will never know that some changes possible. So those type of changes which the Angular will not know, those values can be bound, can be changed with this lifecycle hook. Okay. Next is ng after content in it. We will when we see about this, we'll see in depth. Okay. Ng after content in it is when the content is completely initialized. We have something called ngContent, that is content projection from the parent to child. When the parent uh, completely has initialized the child, when the content it has completely projected from parent to child, this method is called, this lifecycle hook is called. So at this in this part of life cycle, you can completely access the content which was projected from the parent to child through ngContent. You can completely access that. Okay, and then we have ng after content check. This is for checking whether something changed in the content which got initialized. Okay, ng after view unit is the one which is getting called when the view is completely ready. The component view is completely ready, and this is the lifecycle hook where you can access the DOM elements. That is the HTML DOM elements. You can easily reference it using element ref and change it if you want. So this is the only stage where the view is ready for you. Okay, and then we have ng after view check. This method is for checking whether view has changed by any way. So this always happens whenever Angular feels some view has changed something. So it checks whether something has changed in the view. At last we have ng on destroy. This is the last method. Here we can do all the cleanup tasks. So this will be called when the component, the user moves out of the component, or you destroy that component. So at that point this will be called. You can do all the cleanup activities in this. So we have around 8 lifecycle hooks here. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. So this is the question. Okay, before going to the next question, I just would like to explain the project which I will be using for explaining this answers for these questions. Okay, this is my sample project. Okay, this is a simple Angular project which I have written for explaining you the answers for lifecycle hooks. So what it has is it has a parent component and a child component. The parent component I've set up in such a way that parent component, whenever you type something, that input is getting injected to the child. Okay, through at input. Okay, and I have also content projected this component, sample component, from the parent to the child. That also I have done. I have passed the input through at input, the information from parent to child, and I also projected this sample component from the parent to child. I will show you that shortly. So if you see in the code, you can see that you have two components. The parent component is employee list. Okay, this is the parent component. This is the employee list, and this employee list, if you go to the HTML, you can see that this is the parent component HTML, and in the parent HTML you have the app employee. This is the child component inside the parent component. That's what you see it here, right? The child. It is this one, app employee. So to that child, I am passing this name as input from the ng model which I have set in the parent. The name gets inserted inside the parent. Okay. The child is nothing but app employee, which is the app employee which I have created here. Okay, so you can see it here. This is the child component. So it has a at input through which it receives the input from the parent. Okay, you can see it here, employee input. You will find the same employee input here. So through this at input attribute only, it receives the value name, which is set as ng model in the parent. Okay, and next thing what I have done is I have tried to content project this app sample into the app employee. This is app sample is nothing but the sample component. You can see it here. I have written something called sample component. So I have written something called sample component. Okay, this letter is app sample. So this component also I have put inside the child component app employee. So whenever I put whatever I put inside the child component, I can take it from the child component using ngContent. This is called as content projection. Okay. So this whatever the content which is put inside the app employee will we can take it from the child component using ngContent. You can see it here. ngContent. So whatever content I put inside the child component, I take it here using the ngContent directive, which is present in Angular. We'll try to see when we go through each question in depth. Okay, this is what the setup is actually. I have the employee list, which is the parent, and app employee, which is the child. And whatever I input I give through the parent, it gets inside the child component through at input. And since I have given the sample component inside app employee, that is the child component tag, that is we can see that in the child component using ngContent. Okay, let me go to the first question so that you explain it better. Okay, so what is the first question? So what is the first life cycle first lifecycle hook to be called? It is nothing but ng on changes. This is the first lifecycle hook to be called. So this lifecycle hook will be called not once whenever the input changes. In the here this will be called ng on changes will be called whenever at input is changed from the parent. Here whenever this input is changed, this ng on changes will be called. You can see it because I have already put in the child component, I have already added a console log. Okay, if you go to this, you can see a console log for ng on changes. Sorry, not app employee, it is app employee. So I have already put a console log. So whenever the at input changes, this should be called, and we should be able to see this console in our input. And whatever the input it is receiving, this ng changes from this name input, you can able to derive from that. Let us see that. So whenever I will just go to the development tool, okay, and when you can just see through this, you can see just leave the parent. So for the child, this is the first life cycle method, life cycle hook to be called, and this will be called whenever we change the value from the parent, whenever that at input is changed from the parent. Whenever I type, you can see that. Maybe I will filter with ng on changes. So you can see this. Okay, let me delete it. Okay, let me also clear this. Whenever I type something, right, you can see ng on changes. For every change of input, it is getting called. From that parameter of lifecycle hook, you can understand what was the previous value and the current value. So you can use this whenever you have a requirement like this. So you want to do something when the input at input from the parent changes, from whatever the value is getting changed from the parent, you can use this lifecycle hook. Okay, and it will be called every time the input is changed from the parent. So this is about ng on changes. This will be the first lifecycle hook to be called for a component. Understand? So this is a very important question. Try to understand first one. And the next one. So this is maybe when the input properties, the first one is whenever the input properties changes, what will be called? The same thing. ng on changes will be called. At input, whenever it is changed from the parent, ng on changes will be called. Okay. Third, the next question. When the component is initialized, which method is called when the component is initialized? This is the very important function lifecycle hook which we frequently use. That is ngOnInit. So it will be called when the component is created, not completed creation, but it is initialized. In that case, this lifecycle hook, if you have written, it will be called. So it will be called after ngOn changes. Okay. And other important thing about this is it will be called only once in the life cycle of a component. Okay. So you can see that here when I take out this, and I also added a console log for ngOnInit. So you should be able to see that. So after ngOn changes, ngOnInit will be called. Okay, this is where if you want to do any initialization for any variables, or if you want to create a database connection, you can go ahead and create in this lifecycle hook. And this will not be called for whenever ngOn changes call, because ngOn changes will be called for all the input changes. You can see this. ngOn changes are called for every change in the input from the parent. But ng on changes will be called for every change in the input from the parent. But ngOnInit will be called only once, the first time when the component is initialized. Okay. Okay, let's go to the next question. So which lifecycle hook runs for every digest cycle, and for if you want to do handle some element which you have not anywhere informed Angular about it, how to do some that maybe bind that value in Angular. Okay, what is a digest cycle first? Digest cycle is responsible for binding the values, maybe in the value in the view to the component class, or class the view to the view. So these two are binded. The same value is whatever is changed in the view is getting changed in the component class. This is happening because of digest cycle. So this digest cycle will be run by Angular every time Angular feels that some change is possible. Maybe when you add a click event handler to a button, this digest cycle will be triggered. Whenever you do HTTP call, this digest cycle will be triggered. So whenever Angular feels that some change might be possible, so that it can update the values from the view to class or class to view. So that digest cycle is run. So what lifecycle hook runs for every digest cycle in a component? Whenever that component's digest cycle is run. So the lifecycle hook name is ngDoCheck. This lifecycle hook is called for every digest cycle run, and you can use this. Maybe you have a input button and you don't have a you have not created any binding property binding for the value, or nothing you have created. In that case, that input element Angular will never know whether it will never start the digest cycle, because you have not created even binding or property binding. So no way Angular will know that this value may change whenever this input element is typed or something. So it will never start the digest cycle. For those elements, the value will not be synced from the class to view or view to class. So in that case, you can use this lifecycle hook to manually set the value. Maybe take the value from the view or from the view and change it in the class. Okay. You can do that change manually. You can manually set the value whenever you feel that the digest cycle is run. Okay. So let's move to the next question. What is ngContent? This is very important question. What is ngContent? ngContent is nothing but, okay, it is it is just a placeholder where all the projected content from the parent will be substituted will be inserted inside ngContent. Okay, this ngContent is used for content projection. So the answer will be same even for content projection. Content projection is done using ngContent. Okay, how you can project a content from a parent to the child? If you go back to our example, I told you that I'm projecting the sample component from parent to child. How I have projected the sample component from parent to child? So whenever inside a child component, okay, this is a child component. If I put any component, okay, any value, it may not need not be a component, it can be a div or whatever. So whatever dynamic content you put inside these two, right? These two tags, selector tags for the child component. It can be a component or a simple DOM element, a div or span or whatever. So this element, right? You can have this element in the child using ngContent. So whatever you put inside these selectors, child component selectors, whatever you put inside this can be made available in the child component using ngContent. That's it. Whatever you put it inside that child component selectors, that that dynamic content can be made available in the child component by using ngContent. Okay, that's it. So this is about content projection. If you go to our application, you can see that this is the projected content. This sample words is nothing but the sample component. If you see, sample words is the content of the sample component. This sample component I have projected inside the employee list. I have inserted inside employee list. Okay. So this should will be available inside ngContent right now, inside the child component. We can see that. Let's see that. So you can see this. That component got inserted inside ngContent. You see. So inside ngContent, that content is available right now. That content got substituted inside ngContent. That's what I was trying to say. So this is about app sample. Okay, this is the sample component. This got injected inside the ngContent. Okay, sorry, it doesn't get inserted inside ngContent. Wherever you put ngContent, it gets substituted. That sample component gets substituted in the place of ngContent. Okay, okay, you can see it here. If you go to the child component class, so this is what has happened there. In this place, the sample component got substituted because I am sending that sample component inside the child component selectors. Okay, you can see this here. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Hope this is clear for you. So this can be an important question. So using ngContent, the content gets projected from the parent. The dynamic content gets projected from the parent to the child. So what is the lifecycle method called after the content is injected through ngContent or content projection happens? So after this content is projected, right? What lifecycle hook is called? When the content, dynamic content is projected from parent to child, what lifecycle hook is being called? If you take, this is the lifecycle hook, which is called after the content is projected. Okay. So in this lifecycle hook, you can get hold of the content, because this lifecycle hook gets called after the content is projected from parent to child. So this is the only, you can't take the content projection projected in ng on changes or ng do check. You can take it only from ng after content init. Okay, you can see, I will just show you. If you see in the console, you can see after ng do check, the ng after content init will be called. Okay, so this gets called after the content is initialized in the child. Okay, and in this, by using this template reference, let me go to this and see. So this is the ng after content init, and this is the console I have added. So I have told you, right? Only in this lifecycle hook, you can reference the content which gets projected. You can reference that by using at content child. So since we are injecting sample component, you can simply say at content child sample component sample component. Okay, and this can be accessed by using this sample now, and using that sample, I will also print this sample here in the same lifecycle hook, and this at content child decorator must be written over ng after content init to get hold of the content. Now, using that content, what I'm trying to do is, maybe if you see this, you'll understand better. To access the content, if you just simply say at content child sample component, if the sample component is got injected into the child, it will be available in the sample, and using this sample you can change the color of it to green, maybe whatever. Okay, so let's see that in action. So if you go here, you will be able to see ng after content in it, and you can see here the using at content child we are able to access this sample component, because as I told you, only in ng after content init lifecycle hook this content will be available for you to reference it, to take it out from that. So simply here you have to mention the component. Okay, the component which I mean which I need to refer, since here sample component dot inserted, this will be available in this sample, and using this you can change the color also. Okay, it simply says this sample component has a color red, color green, maybe you can change it to red as also. Using the reference to that sample component, you can even change it to red. Now it should be color red, you can see that. Okay, so this is about after content in it. Just understand that this will be called after the content got initialized from the parent to the child. Content get projected. What is at content child when it is available? So as I told you, at content child is a decorator, a method decorator which should be written above ng after content in it. Okay. Using this at content child, you can access, get hold of the content which got projected from the parent to the child. Since we have projected the sample component, we can access, you can get hold of that sample component in the component class using at content child. This has to be imported. Okay, it will be from Angular core, and you have to mention the component which I'm interested to get a reference to, and maybe you just type say it as static false and sample, and it is a type of sample component. And this dot sample will not be available in ng on init or ng do check or ng on chase. It will be only available in ng after content init. So you can get hold of that in this ng after content init by simply saying this dot sample. Using this, you can also change the color, okay, of the component. The color is available because in the sample component I have something called color. You see, based on the color, the style is getting applied. Background color is applied. That's why we are able to see that color. Using that, you can change the background color. It is an instance variable. Excuse me. So this is about at content child. This is a very important question. Okay. So which lifecycle method will be called when all complete view is initialized? When the complete view is ready, what is the lifecycle hook which will get called? Okay. The the lifecycle hook is called as ng after view init. Okay, this lifecycle hook will be called after the entire view is ready. And as I told you in ng after content init, you can refer the content in this lifecycle hook. Likewise, you can refer the view. You can get hold of the view in the component class in this lifecycle only, after this lifecycle only. Because before this lifecycle, or ng on changes or ng after content init or ng do check, the view will not be completely ready. Only from this lifecycle hook, you can access the complete view. For that, we use something called at view child. Let's move back to our application. Okay. In this, I have, as here also I have mentioned. Okay, if you see ng after view unit, I have put the console log. Okay, for for making you understand how we can get hold of the view. Okay, I've used a reference template reference variable at wrapper. Okay, we just add a hash and the any name you want. So here I have mentioned it as wrapper. So I want to get a reference element ref of this HTML element so that I can change the value inside it or whatever, change the color or whatever. So only in this, only after this method, ng after view init, you can refer the view. Okay. So here the view name is maybe you can put it before this ng after content init itself, and I'm asking for wrapper, whatever the wrapper refers to the template reference variable. That wrapper, I want the view, that view in this instance variable, and it is of type element reference. Okay, it just gives the element reference of the HTML element. Okay, we can access it in this method now. In this dot wrapper will give you that element reference. Okay, let us see that element reference. So if you go to the console, you can see it gets called after content init is getting called. Okay, after content init is getting called. After that, you can see ng after view init. In this, before this is getting printed, as per our code, you can see we have tried to print child wrapper this dot wrapper. So in that you can see the element ref of this view, this complete view. This complete view is employee component. Okay, as we know, the employee component is the child component. So this gives the native element of the complete employee element, employee component. So since you have the reference to the HTML element, you can use this to change the color or content of it. So here if you see, you can easily see all that element, child sample words. Maybe if you change the inner text here, the text will get changed. So now you can access the complete view. Okay. So let us move to the next question now. Hope this is clear for you. So okay, or initialized in ng after view init. So in this method, the complete view is available. What is view child? As I told you, using this decorator, you can reference the view. You can get the element reference of the complete view. You just need to add a template reference, and using that reference, if you mention it in the view child, it will put that element reference of the view inside whatever the name you have mentioned. Okay, whatever name you have mentioned, it will put inside that. Here I have mentioned it in wrapper. Here it will put the element reference, and this element reference can be taken in this lifecycle hook. Okay. Okay, and it will be available only in after ng after view unit, because only in this lifecycle the complete view gets initialized. Okay. Which is the lifecycle method where cleanup tasks can be done. So it is simple. It is ng on destroy. This is the lifecycle hook which will be called when the component is when the user moves out of the component or component is destroyed. Okay. I can show you that in this example. If you move out of this component, right? Maybe I've written a logic here, like in the employee list, I've written a logic. When it is not equal to ABC, it will show this child component. So if you mention ABC here, this child component should be destroyed because I have put ng if not equal to ABC. So let's see that. I will clear it and I will put ABC now. So now that child component is destroyed. So the child destroy, ng on destroy on the child component will be called. So this will be called. Okay. Here you can put all the cleanup tasks. Like if you want to close your database connections, all can be done here. Okay. So this is what about ng on destroy. And let's move on to the next question. What is the last lifecycle hood to be called in the lifecycle of a component or directive? It is ng on destroy. And as I told, it will be called when it is destroyed. The component is destroyed. So what are the lifecycle methods that will be called only once in the lifecycle? These are the methods which will be called only once in the lifecycle of a component. Ng on init, ng after content init, after view init, ng on destroy. All other methods, all other life cycles will be called whenever the digest, whenever the check has to happen, like ng do check, and we also have ng after content check, which will check the content of the view whether it has to get updated. In the similar, ng after view check also will check for any updation need to be done in the content. About question and answers in routing topic. So I have around 8 question and answers. Let us move on with the questions. So before moving on to the questions, I would like to explain the application which I will be using to explain the answers. Okay. So let me go to this application. This is my Angular application. So if you see it here in that I have just served that application, and right now right in the view you can see two components here. You see the employee list component and add employee component. Both components are in the same view. Okay, this is one component and this is another component. If you don't have routes, it will all be in the same view. So this is not it should be, right, how it should be. So in this routing topic, question and answers, we will be explaining how to implement routes. We will be by means of questions we will be asking and try to make this as different routes. I want to make this as employee list route and this as add employee route. Okay, let me do that. So this is my application. Right here you can see employee list component and add employee component. Employee list basically for how many elements in the array it creates that much employee components. Okay, employee list makes use of employee component and it list, as you can see, each one of them is a employee component. Just list through the employee components. Okay, so this is my application. Let us move with the questions now. So the first question is how and where to write the routes. I told you, right, we have to write two different routes, one for employee list and one for add employee. How and where we have to write the routes? We write routes in the app module. Okay, in the module, it is not needed that it should be always the root module. If you have separate written your own modules, that module can have its own router as well. Okay, so let me go to the right now. I will write the route in my root module. Okay, so I should have a we have to define a constant because this is not going to change. Maybe keep it as routes, and this can have a and this is of path employees. Okay, so it is routes. The type is routes. Okay, okay, maybe. And here in this array we have to define all the routes we want for this application. I want two routes. One, we have to say the path of the route. The path of the route is employee list, and it should whenever anyone comes to this route, what component it should show. Okay, so I want it to show employee list component. Okay, then and the next one is add employee, the next route. For this, it has to load add employee component. Yes, this is the what I want. So this is how you write routes. Okay. right now I've just written the routes. This is the way we write routes in Angular in a Angular application. Normally write in module file. Okay. Normally, even if you write sub modules, that also will have a route for that module alone. Okay. When anyone goes to that module, how it has to route, it will have that route configuration. Okay. Okay. So this is about the first question. We have just written the routes. How and where is we normally write it in module file. So coming to my second question. How to import your routes? You have written your routes, but how to import it in the root module? So this we have written, but the Angular will not know the routes till now because we have not informed Angular. For informing Angular, we have to import router module, okay, and give this route as an input to it. Okay, so router module dot for root. Since it is a root module, I'm going for root. If it is a sub module, if you have written another module inside this a separate module inside other than the root module, you have to go for child. For only root module, we use for child for root. Otherwise, it is for child. Remember this. Okay. We'll be anyway seeing the differences in one of the questions. So that's it. So what we have to import is we have to import the router module and dot for root, and we have to give the input as the route we wrote. Okay. So this is about importing routes in Angular application. What is router outlet? Now you have told the routes to Angular, but you have not told which place to make the route which got loaded. Maybe if you say employee list, it would load the employee list component. But where to place that employee list component, you have not told to Angular yet. For doing that, you have to make use of router outlet. Router outlet, if you see, it is just a placeholder where the activated route, dynamically activated component will be placed. It is just a placeholder. Okay. So let's see that. So for doing that, what I will say here, you can see that uh, the app component is already loaded. So we have to load the activated component in the app component. So let me place that router outlet in the app component because that's where I want to place the activated component. So let me add this router outlet placeholder. Okay. And I can comment these two because I don't want it to load app component to load both the components by itself. I want to load the dynamically load based on the router configuration, based on the what route the user has activated. Okay. So router outlet is nothing but the placeholder where the activated component will be placed. Okay. So now let us check whether it came for us. So when you say employee list, because that's the path we gave there, right? When we load a employee list, the employee list component should load for me. And it is loading. So if you see here, add employee component will not come because when you give employee list, it will load that component and place it in the router outlet. You can see it. If I inspect this, you can see the router outlet. It has placed next to that app employee list next to that. And similarly, if you load add employee, it will load the add employee component in the router outlet, in the near the router outlet placeholder. Okay. So this is about router outlet. Let me go to the next question. So how to navigate to other route? What module to use? So we will see this question and move to fourth. That will be more sequential. See, okay, normally people will not, okay, we will not make the user to enter the URL, add employee or employee list in the URL, then load the component. We normally have buttons or menus. Based on the click, we will load that component. So let me do it via buttons now. Okay. So that's what the question is. How to change routes on click in HTML. Maybe there is an employee list button. If you click on that, I want to load the employee list. Likewise, if there is an add employee button, if I click that, the add employee component should get loaded. Okay. For that, what I will do, I think I already have this. I have two buttons. Okay. We'll just paste it here. This employee list, not employee list. It should be in app modules, right? So this is the app component HTML. So in this, here I will add two buttons as well. Okay. So one button is employee list and another button is employee add. Okay. Okay. So we have now, if you see in the application, you will have two buttons, employee list and employee add. Now, based on the click of the button, I want to load that component. Okay, this is the question here. So based on the click in the HTML, how to load that corresponding component, not from the URL, but based on the click in the button. Okay, how to make that happen? For that, Angular has given us a attribute called router link. You can see this. You can see router. It is router link. Okay, attribute name is router link, and here you have to mention the route path. For employee list, I think it is employee list, right? We can see that path there. You can just copy that path. You're not clear. You just copy this path and put to app component. Totally. This is one path. And for employee add, if anyone clicks, what route I need to load, you need to mention the path for employee add as well. So here it is add employee. Don't mention the component name. You have to mention the path, the router link. Okay. So now when it gets loaded, based on the click, that employee list will be loaded. See, when I click on employee list, that employee list component is loaded. Likewise, if I press on employee add, that add employee component will be loaded. So by using router link, we have made this possible. How to change in routes based on click in HTML. But this change is happening from HTML. Okay. Now moving back to the fourth question. How to programmatically navigate to other routes. Okay. What model to use for that? Okay. For showing this example, okay, maybe what I will do, So for navigating to other routes programmatically, I've already done one implementation likewise. If you see add employee, if you take, so once anybody adds this employee, right? Okay. I want to show that added employee in the employee list. So what it should happen is once the server says the employee is added, I want to move to employee list route. Okay. For that, let us implement that. How we will see how we can implement that. Likewise, I'm saying I am adding some user here. Okay. If I say submit, it will just stay in this page, though it we don't know whether it got added or not. If the user wants to check whether it got added, he has to go and here it would have got added. But still, for making it properly happen, we have to reroute to this employee list page. So let us see how we can do it for answering this question. How to programmatically navigate to other routes. So we will also see which module to use for that. So for programmatically, this is the code add employee code TS file. So once the add employee is done and say server says it is success, I want to move back to the employee list route, right? For that, what I need to do is first I need to get this router module through dependency injection first. First step is I need to get the router instance. Using this router instance only we can navigate to another route. Okay, for getting that you just specify in the constructor router. Okay, now we have got the router instance. Using that router, this is the module we require for programmatically navigating to other routes. Okay, so you can see this. It is from Angular router. And using this router instance, what I will do, using the navigate function of it, the same router dot navigate, and you mention the path where you are interested to move. Once the add employee is success. Here the router, you have to specify it as a array. I have only one element here, so I will specify it as employee list, right? Just say it like this. So it should move once the add employee is success from the server. It should now move to employee list route. This is the path of your route. Whatever you mentioned in that path. So my path is as per what I've defined here. It is employee list. So let us check now whether after add employee it is properly going. So let me add something called XYZ with this something and I will make him a manager. Now submit. Now you can see it navigated automatically programmatically to the employee list route and it will also change in the URL. So you should be able to see our route somewhere. So you are able to see it here. Okay, right? This is how we can programmatically navigate using navigate in Angular application. So you have to use router module and you have to use navigate method. Okay, let me move to the next question. So other thing is how to send query parameters. Okay. If I want to send the query parameters to another thing, how to send? We can easily send it by using queryParams. Okay. We have to use, maybe I will add it in the add employee only. Maybe go to this component. Here you can easily add query params. Add query params and the key and the value. Maybe give some key. Give some state. Maybe it is, I want it to be a list. Maybe whatever. So that's it. Now this query params will be sent with the route. And the receiving employee list component has to maybe need it can take from this query params and do whatever it wants with that. We can see that. Maybe I will do it again now. Let us see whether anything has happened because of that. So make it DFG, make it something, delete, and you can see the query params in the URL itself. And the receiving component can easily try to get the router params and do it. For that we have to use another module for that. Okay, the another module name is, I can tell you, you have to use something. You have to use activated route. This module, okay, this module needs to be used, and you need to get the query params out of it. You have to use this dot route dot snapshot dot query params to receive, to get the query params from the URL. This has to be done by the receiving component. In our case, it is employee list. Okay. So let's move on to the next question. How to add children routes in the application. How to add children routes. So in our application, right, we also have a login page. Okay. Maybe I'm not added. I will also add that so that you understand why you need children routes. So the question here is how to add children routes. Okay. So it is like route within a route, that is children routes. Maybe to explain that more clearly, I also have a login page in my application. So let me add for that also. Okay, what I will do, I will add a path for login also because I have also login component. So I will say login and it should be login component. Maybe yeah. So now I also added a login. You have to put a comma here. So if you say login here, it should load the login as well. Okay. It has some issues. So maybe I will load this login component here also. So now it should load, I think. So now it has loaded the login component. But if you see the issue here, all these components are getting loaded into the same app module. Okay. If you say login, also it loads in the same app modules. In the same app modules, we also have employee list and these two buttons. This should not be like this, right? We should have a container page for both the employee list and employee add. It should not be in the same level of login. So we need to add a home page, okay, which contains these two, employee list and add employee. Okay, so it should be like both employee list and employee add. If they are in the same level, it will be like what we see here. Okay, the login page will show the employee list and employee add. So it should be only when the person logins, properly logins, he should be able to come to home page. That's why we need a container page. So let me have it as a home page. I've already created a home page. So just let me put home page, and it should, the component should be home page component, home component. Okay. And these two, right? These two, employee list and add employee, should be part of this home, inside home component. When anyone wants to load this employee list, it should be home slash employee list. So it should be inside home page, these two. So it should be as a children of this home page. So that's why we need children routes. So how to add children routes in Angular? Just put it as children and add these two routes. We just will put these two routes inside. Okay, and we will close this. Okay, that's it. So this is how we add a children route. Now this employee list and add employees are a children of home page. Okay, and also we need to remove this from that app component.html. We will remove this because these two should be part of home page, not that root component. It should not be part of that. It should be part of home page. So in the home page, if you go and see home component, which I have created already, you will see the two buttons already. Okay. So likewise, I've added all that. And why we need a router outlet here? Just comment this, and I will try to run it now. If I run it now, okay, you can see home. Now you can see that those buttons are not appearing here. If you see home, it loads the home page. But when you click on anything, right, nothing will happen. Why nothing is happening? Since it is a children of home page, in the home page you need to mention where it has to, you need to specify a placeholder router outlet where it can put the activated route. Okay, the home page, it will put in the router outlet of root component. Likewise, the login also, if the login, any user mentions that login component will be put in the router outlet of the root component, that is app component. Likewise, home also, it will be done in the app component, router outlet mentioned in app component. But when you go inside home page, home add employee, you need to mention it in the home component.html where this activated component should be mentioned. So you need to mention it in the component HTML so as to show the component. Okay. So now when you do that, you should be able to see the view. You're able to see. Since I have mentioned a router outlet inside home page, whenever I click the router link, I have already added for home page, home component, I've added a router link. So it loads that employee list or add employee inside the router outlet mentioned in the placeholder of router outline mentioned in the home component. Okay, hope this is clear. Let me go to the next question. So what is the difference between router module.forRoot and router module.forChild? This I already mentioned. Okay, router module.forRoot is where we mention the added routes, right? So if you see the module, you can see router module.forRoot. We mention the added routes. Added routes. So the for root we will be using only in case of root module. For other modules, what we add, okay, submodules or lazy loaded modules, we use for child. Only for understand that only for app module, root module, we use for root. In cases of other modules, here I would have added lazy loaded modules like authentication module. This is my own module. I have created this module. In that I will use only for child. I have also added route here. Okay, but I will use for child only in this case because it is a sub module. Okay, not a root module. Okay, hope you understand this. So we will use root module, we will use for root, and for lazy loaded or some modules we use for child. Now Angular forms. I have around 12 question and answers. Let us see that. So the first question is what are forms and why we need them? Okay. Forms, as you all know, it is the common way to send some data. It is for getting some data from the user. So for all the data entries, like you want to get the username, password, or you want to get the information, user information. For all this, we need forms. Maybe they add an employee, add a student, need to add some details, get some details from the user. We use forms. That is the way of getting data from the user. Okay. So as you see that handling user input with forms is the cornerstone of many common applications, and it enables user to log in or update a profile or provide sensitive information, and to perform many other data entry tasks we need forms. Now let us see how forms are handled in Angular. Okay, before jumping into that, I just want to show you the application which I will be using for explaining these forms. Okay, I already have application done using I have done the same application for template forms and reactive model forms also. Okay, so in this question and answers, I will be explaining you how I created the template model form and reactive model form. Okay, and we'll be seeing all the questions involved in that. Okay, so this is the basically the form, and if you want to see the application, this is the application which I have, where the template form and the types of forms are template forms and reactive forms. Those two are handled as different components, login component and reactive. This is template login form and this is reactive login form. So let me, as we proceed, I will explain you how to create the reactive login form and template login form. So let's go back to the question. So the question is, what are the different types of forms in Angular? There are two types of form, the reactive forms and template driven forms. Reactive forms, if you see, they are more scalable and it is capable to handle more complex operations. And this type of forms we create in the component class. Okay, and it can be more testable. Template driven forms, as the name implies, it is from the template, from the view. Okay, in this case, you can go for this if you want to develop a simple form, and it is not very scalable and it is very difficult to test as well. So reactive forms are more preferred. Okay, understand? So let me go to reactive forms first. How to develop a reactive forms? What is reactive forms? In case of reactive forms, if you take any forms, we have a form group and form controls. Inside form groups, we have form controls for each of the input elements. Okay, maybe let me explain you in code. Okay, and reactive forms we develop it from the class. As I told you before, reactive forms, the form model is developed from the class and we sync the same with the template. So it is created from the class and we sync it with the template. Let us see how to create reactive forms before I try to explain you how to implement this. Okay, so let us move to a reactive component. So reactive component, as I told you, okay, the form model is being developed from the component class. You can see here we are developing a form group. Inside that I'm saying I need form control, two form controls for username and password. I'm having a form group, new form group. This form group you can see it, it is from Angular Forms. Okay, and inside form group, the form group is like a parent. So I am saying inside the form group I need two controls, form controls. This is username and password. Okay, and here the first argument to form control is what should be the value, default value. Here I say it should start with null, and I'm saying this username should have validators of required. This is a required control. And for a password I'm saying I need two validation. One is required and the another is the password should be min length of 4. Okay, these two I've added to the form group. This is about the thing which I need to create in the component class. Okay, so now I have created the form groups. The form model has been created. Now I have to sync the same with the HTML. The corresponding HTML is reactive login component.html. In this, I have to sync what form group I'm created there and form controls I've created there. So for syncing, what I say to the form, I say you use this form group. For that, I'm saying property binding of form group and I'm saying login form. This is the same name with which the form group is created. Okay, so I'm mentioning that name here. Okay, so I'm saying you use the form group which is created in login form. So through property binding, I'm given this value. So I've created a form group already in login form. I'm asking the form to use that form group. And the control, we have two controls here, right? Username and password. For both the controls, I'm saying you use the form control in the name of username, form control name, password. So these two names should match what is provided in the component.ts. So you can see here, right? The username, password. So I'm saying you use the form control name in this name. Inside the form group, you use the form control name of username. So this username I already created, right? Inside form group. I'm asking it to use that form control name. Similarly, I'm for password, I'm telling it to use form control name password. Okay. And for validation error messages, you have to add a span element. From the login form dot get, I'm getting the username. Login form is a form group, right? From that, I'm getting this form control, and in that, I'm testing whether it is valid. If it is valid, it will be true, else it will be false. Similarly, I'm testing whether it is touched. Only if it is touched, I want to test this. Okay, if it is false, you will get this error message. Okay, similarly for password, I want to show two different messages, one for minimum length, and password is required. Password is required in the same way, login password form dot get password dot valid. Okay, from that I'm trying to get the form control, and from that I'm testing for valid. Similarly here I'm testing the min length error should not be there. For that I'm putting this. Okay, min length error should not be there, and when password should be touched, show this message. If the min length error you, is present, then you show this error. Okay, and I disable this button if the login form, that is a form group, is not valid. Okay, by means of this property binding. If it is not valid, the disable will be true. Okay, so hope this is clear. And for reactive login model to work, you also need to add this imports reactive forms module, which is from Angular forms. Okay, so right now we have added it because we have added the route for that. We have added the route. So let us check whether it is working. If you log out, and the username password, because I'm using a node server, so I have hard coded the username password. It is abc pass. If I give it as null, you can see that it is disabled, and you can see the error message here. Likewise, if password is less than 4 letters, you will get this message, and if it is none, you will see this message. And both are not valid, you will see that disabled. If I give the correct username and password, it will be able to enter. So this is about reactive forms. So in this, we create the the form model in the component class and sync it with the template. I say the input button of username, you use this form control. Similarly, the input of password to use this form control. Since similarly the form group to use the form group what I have created. Okay. So in the case of reactive forms, each form element in the view is directly linked to form model. Okay, since we have synced it. So the updates from the view to the model and model to view are synchronous. So understand reactive forms are synchronous and are not dependent on the UI rendered. And the module you need to import is reactive forms module. Okay. So the any input event, right, when it happens in the view, it is directly linked to the form control instance. When any event happens in the username, that is directly updated in the form control instance because we have already synced there the username form control instance name as username. You can see that here, right? You can see it here. Form control name as username or password, whatever. Since it is directly linked, it is synchronous, and we are able to directly take the value from that input event. Okay. Now let us see in the case of the thing you have to understand in this case is the updates are synchronous and the view is directly linked to the form model. But when you go for template forms, this is not the case. Okay, we create the form model. We ask Angular to create the form model. Okay, we don't create the form model. We ask Angular to create the form model, and uh, and we use that form model in the component class. Okay, you understand? So let us see a template form model. So for showing the template form model, let me change this login as template login. I think it is login component. Okay, it is login component you have to use. So now I should be able to see a template form instead of a, so I'm able to see a template form. So I also want to illustrate. So let me go to the login component now. This is the login component, template login component. So Angular will create a ng form directive for all the forms. If you have imported forms module, we also imported forms module, which is required for template form. Okay. Once you have imported this for all the forms, Angular will be creating a ng form. Okay. ng form, it is a directive which will be created. And the ng form only will be creating the form model. This directive will only be responsible for creating the form group what we created in the component class, right? So this directive will be responsible for creating form group, and this form group we will be using for validating or getting the values and all those. So here I will take the ng form which got created for this template by using this template reference. Okay, so I am saying asking Angular what you created, the ng form you created, please provide it in this variable. Okay, and for creating a form control inside the form group, okay, you have to use ng model. Okay, you have to use ng model, and name is also essential because it will the ng model, when you have a ng model inside a form, Angular will create a form control. The ng model is responsible for creating the form control, and name is also mandatory. If you don't give a name, you will get error, because as you see in React to login TS, right, you will be able to see this. So there is a name, right, inside new form group. There is a name given for this form control. For creating this, Angular needs a name for ng model for creating the form control. Okay, so two things are mandatory when you have a ng model inside a form. You should also have a name so that it can create, ng model can create a form control in this name. Okay, and I want the form control it created, right? The ng model whatever it created, I want to access it. I'm using the same template reference as we use for form, ng form. I'm retrieving it from name. I'm asking it to the ng model you created, please place it in name. So here the ng model which you have inside the form is responsible for creating the form control. Only through the directive you can access the form model, the form control in this case. Okay. So from that name, I'm able to use the valid as we did it for reactive forms, right? There we had it in the class, so we did login form dot get. Here we already have it in name, so we directly use name dot valid, name dot touched, and all those. For adding validations here, you have to put required. Okay, required here, and you have to put the validation for the error messages. Similarly, for password for min length 4, you have to add min length 4 and required, and for showing the error message, similarly you have to do. And here also we get the ng model in the template reference variable of pass, and we use the pass for adding the validations. Okay, similarly what we did for reactive forms, right? And here also using the f, I test for validity. Okay. So this f will have the form group. Okay, so when we submit, I'm sending this form group to the class file loginform.ts, and from that I can retrieve the username and password. Okay, you can see it here. Username and password can be retrieved from the uh, form group. So in this case, you need to understand one thing very clearly. Here, we don't create the form model ourselves. We rely on Angular for creating the directive ng form, which will internally create form group. And we rely on directive ng model for creating the form control. And only through the directive, we are able to retrieve the form model here in this case. Okay. So hope you understood. So in this case, the form element is linked to a directive that is responsible for creating the form model. So you can understand ng form for creating form group and form model ng model for creating form control. Okay. So we depend on a directive for creating the form model. And here it is asynchronous. It is not synchronous. As we see in the case of reactive forms, where direct updation happens from because we create that form model, direct updation happens. Okay, we need not do it asynchronously, but in this case it is asynchronous, and the module we need for template models is called as forms module. What is ng form? We already explained, right? Ng form is nothing but a directive which is responsible for creating the form group. Okay, so here the ng form will be created for all the forms. Okay, wherever you have in the imports you have form form modules, right? That's what I'm thinking. So it is. So you can see it here. Wherever you have forms module imported and you have a form HTML form, this ng form will be created by Angular. Okay, understand? And this directive is responsible for creating the form group. Okay, and this form group can be you can retrieve this form group which is created by Angular using template reference. Okay, so this is a directive and it creates a top level form group instance. Okay, so this form group as you know can be used for validation, all those. Okay, this is very important, understand it is a directive. You don't need this in case of reactive forms because we create the form group ourselves. We don't rely on Angular for creating ng forms. Okay, we don't rely on ng forms created by Angular. Ng form created for all forms? Yes, it is created for all forms provided you have imported forms module. Okay. Is it possible to create a form without ng form? Yes, it is possible to create a form without ng form when you provide this ng no form in your form. Okay, maybe in reactive we don't need this, right? You can just simply specify this here in that HTML. You can just specify ng no form. I don't need the, I'm telling Angular don't create the form. Okay, because I have already created the form myself. Okay, so this can also be a good interview question. Okay, what does ng model do in template forms? Ng model in template form is a directive which is responsible for creating form control. And also you have to understand name is very essential because it will create the name form control in this key. You saw that right in reactive forms we put new form group and inside username, and in that username as key we created a new form control. So ng model creates the form control instance for to manage the form template form control. Okay, so just understand this. What is the importance of ng model in template forms? So I will show you that in reactive forms. If you go, you can see this, right? we created the new form control in this name. So for this reason only, name is very essential in ng model. You have to give a name so that it will create a form control in that name. Okay, we move to the next question. So as I told you, in this name only the form control instance will be created by ng model. So name is very essential. If you don't give a name in your input, it will throw a error. Okay, okay, hope this is clear. I can also show you that error to you if I delete this name, right? In maybe we were seeing template forms, right? Let me go to this template forms. Let me delete this name for username. So let me see now what happens. So you are able to see error here. Name must be set or the control must be standalone in ng model options. So ng model is used within a form tag. Name attribute must be set. Understand this. Okay. What is a template reference variable and how do you use it? So as we used it like this, right? We used it for getting the access of the ng form and ng model, right? So whenever you want to use a template reference, you have to put a hash and any name. In that name, the model which is available in the DOM element will be available. You can directly use it. Okay. So for using a template reference, just put a hash and any name. In that name, you can get hold of the model created by Angular. In this case, the ng form, the Angular created for us, right? You can reference it. Likewise, in this case, in this name, you can get hold of the ng model created by Angular. Ng model instance, okay, ng form instance similarly. So you can see this. So template reference way is capturing a reference to a specific element, component or a directive. So in our case, we were accessing a specific directive. So that we can use it for here. We used it for doing validations in the same template. Hope this is clear. What is the difference between reactive and template forms? When we should go for both. Template, as we saw, I just made a small issue here. It is reactive template. This is, as you know, right? This is synchronous. This is maybe I confuse certain things. I'll just copy it. This is synchronous, and as we know, right? Template is asynchronous because we rely on a directive to create the model, right? And reactive, we directly create and sync it with the view. So it is synchronous. And in the case of reactive, it is more control. And in case of template, it is less control. Okay. And less control. And here we use ng model syntax for two-way data binding. Here no data binding because all the data we enter is we directly enter it in the form model. Okay, no need of data binding, but here two-way data binding is needed because we need to give that data to the class. So this is suitable for simple scenarios. The reactive also handles complex scenarios. It is easy to use template, but this is more flexible, but you need practice to use it. This is not, template is not scalable, reactive is scalable, and reactive is easily testable, and template is not easily testable. Okay, sorry for the issues I've done. Maybe I confused. I've put in some things here and there. Sorry for this. So this is the differences. Okay. So let's move on to the next question. Hope you understood this. So when to use reactive template? Reactive, you can use it for complex and large things, and for a template you can use for small, where you think that it will not expand or it will not scale. You can use template. Okay, and if you want testing mandatorily, you go for reactive. If you are not very sure about testing in your application in Angular. So let's proceed with the questions. Okay, before proceeding with the questions, I just would like to explain the application which I will be using for explaining these questions. This is my sample Angular application which I have. Okay, since we are going to use guards against routes, I've already configured the routes and guards we are going to use. If you see here, I have a login page. Okay, the login actually loads a module, authentication module, lazy in a lazy way. Okay, it loads the in a lazy way, and I have a home page. Inside that home page, I have three more components: employee list, add employee, and employee as children's. Okay, you understand? You have to understand these so that we can understand gods more properly. So we have a home page which acts as a container for these subroutes or subpages. Okay, if you go to the application, so we are able to see a login page. Once we log in, we will be moved to home. Okay, by default, the home page just have these two buttons. Okay, if you press on any one of the buttons, we go to the employee list, which is a child component of home. Likewise, employee add is also a child component of home, as we have specified in our routes. Okay, we have a home path, home route. Inside that we have all these routes as children. Okay, just have this basic knowledge so that we can explain how to guard these routes with the help of Angular guards. Okay, so let me move to the first question. So how to guard your routes with session? If you want to prevent your routes, maybe home or home employee list, you want to prevent anyone accessing these routes without a session. You want to guard it. How you will guard it? How can you guard it? For that, you have to use guards in Angular. Okay. This has to be, and in that guards are several ways, several types. In that guards, you have to write logic to check whether the session is present. If the session is present, you go to this, you proceed with the page, proceed with the route, or else move back to login page. And how to create guards is, it is simple, very simple. In Angular, you just put ng using, I'm trying to generate guard using Angular CLI. You put guard and the type of guard you want. Okay, you'll put a sample guard something. Once you do this, it will ask which type of guard you want. Maybe for time being, I will give this one. So it will create that can activate guard for you. Okay. So this is how it is simple to create guards. Let me explain the type of guards in the next question. So you can do this using guards in Angular. Guards have been implemented to prevent anyone accessing routes. Maybe you write the logic which you want to be present before anyone reaches to your route. Maybe you check whether the session is already present or something before he reaches. Else you move back to login page. Ask him to log in to for the application to create a session, something like that. So next question is, what are the different type of guards? We have four types of guard: can activate child, can deactivate, can load. Can activate is used for anyone going to your route. Okay, this actually guards your complete path. Okay, maybe home page. In our case, you can use can activate for writing logic so that you can prevent any user from going to a home page. Can activate child is all the child pages. Maybe in the home we were able to see, right? If you go to app module.ts, you will be able to see. In the home, you have many other routes. So if you want to prevent access to these routes, you can use can activate child. Okay. Can deactivate can be used if you want to do some check confirmation before any user moves out of your route. Maybe uh, he is entering employee details and just moves out of the route to another page. You can ask him, do you want to save the information, something like that. You would have seen this in many cases. So to prevent unsaved data, you can use can deactivate. Can load can mostly used in case of lazy loaded modules, where you can do some logic and check whether he we can allow to load the particular lazy loaded module. You can write logic, maybe a URL is in this way. We can load. So can load can be used to prevent the load of a lazy loaded module. Okay. So let's move to the next question. How to guard the complete path? If you want to anyone accessing the complete path, the complete home page, you can use can activate guard. I already created a can activate guard. This you can see it in guards. Can activate auth guard.ts. Okay, this file you can see this. So you can, as I told you, you can generate this guard by using ingenerate, and in the can activate, right? This page will be generated by Angular for you, and in the can activate method, you have to write the logic. Maybe what I have written is, if the local storage has current user, if the local storage has current user key, then allow him to move to this home page, allow him to move to the what the page he asked for. Else you route to login page. I have used router module. I have asked Angular for injecting the router module, and using that I am navigating to login page. Okay. So this is the logic I have written. So this is the logic we have to write. Maybe in my application, whenever the user logs in, I will set this key. Okay. By using whether this key is present in local storage or not, I will come to know whether session is present. Maybe in your case, the logic may be different. So if you take in this case, is logged in. So in the application local storage, you can find a key called current user. So using this key, I decide whether the session is present or not. Now you have added can activate guard. How to use that against the home page? For that, what you have to do is just go there to your home page. you just add can activate and within brackets you write the name of the guard. It is can activate auth guard, right? You just add that auth guard. Sorry, this is different. And you okay. So now what will happen is okay. Now if I delete, so if I delete this key in local storage, right? Then I understand that session is not present. If I go try to access the home page again, I will move back to the login page. I will not be given access because my guard protects it, and seeing that local storage is not present, that current user key is not present, he pushes me to the login page. Okay, this is how can activate is used. So you have to add that guard and you have to add it in the routes, app routes. Okay, can activate and then the auth guard. Okay, so this is about can activate. Let's move to the next question. How to guard the children path? Okay, you will get a see a small issue here. Okay, I will show you that issue. We'll pass it. Now it will create okay. If I delete it, delete this one, and if I switch between the children, still I am able to access it. You are able to see, but this should not be allowed because I have removed the key. Though I have removed the key, this is not, this route change, children route is not protected by the guard yet. But if I access the home page, it will be guarded and I will move to the login page. But this children route is not protected yet. If I keep on moving between the children routes, I am not able to get that protection from the guard. So to get that protection, we have to add something called can activate child instead of can activate. Can activate for complete path, but can activate child is for children path. Whenever you want to protect a children. Now I want to protect all these children, and when the session is not present, I want to move them to login page. So I will also added this one activate children guard also. So my logic is same here, but I have to generate ngContent activate whatever name you want to give, uh, ngContent guard and some name, and in that you have to choose this time can activate child. Once you choose that, you will get all this skeleton. In that you want to write this logic. So this logic is same as what I added in auth guard. I will check whether the current user is present. If the current user is present, I will return true. Else, I will return move to login page and return false. So I have written this can activate child guard. Now I have to add it in my routes. So I will add can activate child, and here I have to put can activate children. Okay, activate children guard. Okay, once you do this, let's check now whether I'm getting a active protection in my children cards. Okay, now I will delete this. I have added can activate child right now. You see I have added this can activate child. So it should be protecting my child guards. Let us see. Now I switch to another child route. You see it moved me to the login page. You see. So that's how we can activate child words. Okay, let's go to the next guard. How to add a confirmation message when the user moves out of the route. We can easily add it by making use of can deactivate guard. Okay, so to generate it, use the same way can ng generate guard any name, and when it gives option, this time you choose deactivate guard. Okay, so I have already created a deactivate guard. So this is how we have to create a deactivate guard. Okay, this would be created by Angular for you. Here you have to add here it is little bit different. You have to say can component deactivate. Okay, and you also need to add an interface. So this deactivate, right, I have written for a generalized component. I have said that all the components will have deactivate method. All the components which have deactivate method can make use of this deactivate guard. That's what I am saying. Okay, so I have else if you're writing to a component specific deactivate guard, you can mention the component name also here instead of the interface. Okay, so what logic? I have not written any great logic here. I've it has a can deactivate method. I'm just printing the deactivate guard called so that I can show you. So here you can have any confirmation message to prevent any users to prevent you can show a alert saying that you have some unsafe changes. Do you really want to proceed or something like that? And other thing I do here is if the component has a deactivate method, you call the component deactivate, else return true. That's what I'm saying. Okay. So if I want to add this deactivate to any of my modules, what I will do is what if I want to add it in employee list, what I will do, I will just add, I'll just delete so that I can show you. Can deactivate. Just add this, and within brackets, you just mention that guard. So I'm saying whenever the employee moves out of this employee list route, you should activate this guard should be called so that it can show any alert messages. But right now I'm not showing anything. I'm just consoling it. And in this employee list component, also I have added a deactivate method. If you see here, employee list component, I have added a deactivate component. This also will be called because this component has the deactivate method. This will be called. Okay. So let us check that. So I am right now in employee list. When I move to employee add route, you should be able to see the both the guards. Deactivate guard, which is getting called from the deactivate guard, this one, and the component deactivate called, it is from coming from this employee list. So you can do any component specific alerts or something like that, or you can if you have a generalized uh, alert, you can show it here. So other thing I told you is here you can also write if you want to add a route for a specific component, that also can be done. Okay. Right, that also you can do, but you have to give a at least a simple interface for this to work, because it will not work because it will ask for a some type can deactivate. What is that type? For that I will use this simple interface which simply says that it will have a deactivate method. Okay, so this is about deactivate guard. So this you would have seen in many places where they show a confirmation whenever they move out of this route, one route to another route. Okay, and the last one, how to block the loading of a lazy loaded component. because lazy loaded component gets loaded only when the user goes to a specific route, and only when that route is loaded, that entire module is loaded. That module may be a big module which may take time. So to understand whether this user has that authorization, or he has the proper user to access that module, you can make a small check, so that if it's not the correct authenticated user, we can prevent loading of that such a big module in can load guard itself. No need to load that module for the user, because and it is not also correct for show him the module, maybe in the that module code to him also. That is also wrong, right, when he's not authenticated. So that can be done using can load guard. Can load also can be generated in the similar way. Ng generate guard and any name, and you say onload guard. I also created onload guard. Okay, maybe if you go to the guards, you'll find a onload guard. So here I am not added it inside guards. So this is the load guard. Okay, it will all implement all this, and inside the onload you have to write the logic. How whether you want to, if it return false, it will stop the loading of the module. If it is written true, it will load the module. So I have just made a console log here. I have added this to just to explain you. Okay, to show that the the guard is getting loaded. Okay, this is about the guard. Okay, and for adding it into your app module, to your application, you have to add it to the app module's route. Maybe for me, this login is login, which is present in authentication module, login module, which is present in authentication module. This is a lazy loaded module. So I want to prevent it based on a condition. I want to load it based on a condition. So for that, what I will do is you just need to put can load, and here put load guard. Okay. So now I have added the load guard. So this load guard will just simply print load guard is called. So let's see whether that is getting printed. So if I access the login page, you can see that load guard is getting called, and since I returned true, it is loading the authentication module, which you can see it here. Okay. So if I say return false, right, here the module will not be loaded. You can see this. See, the module is not loaded because we return false. So here also you can't see that authentication module. So we are not able to see that page, template page. Okay. This is how we can easily block the loading of a lazy loaded component. Authentication topic, I have two question and answers. Let us see that. So how to implement basic authentication in Angular. Okay. For implementing basic authentication in Angular, you need to do some changes in the front end as well as in the back end. So in the front end, what you need to do is we need to do this authentication in Angular, because you see and the server should not sh basically the REST API is stateless protocol. So if you get authenticated in the first request, if you give a second request, it will not know who you are. So you need to send some information to for the server to know that you are a authenticated user. Okay. For this, we normally send a once you try to log in and you that token is given from the server, or you generate the token yourself and you send the token every time for every request, so that the server will decode this token and it will understand you as an authorized user, then only provide the information you need. So if after decoding the server finds that you are not authorized user, it will just send a simple error message saying that you are not an authorized user to receive this information. Take this in case of a bank. Okay, you are asking for some account information. The bank server should not give you just because you send a request, it should not give you response. It should find whether you are the correct user to get that information. So only we have some basic authentication. The authentication, if you very in a secure way, you have to go for OAuth token and all those. This is a simple basic authentication so that you understand what is authentication, how it happens in Angular. So in the front end, what we do is for every request, we send a authorized token. Okay, and we send this authorized token with the help of HTTP interceptor. We use HTTP interceptor because it is like interceptor is something which lies between the, it is like a middleman before the request is sent to the backend. So that's what we call as interceptors. So we use HTTP interceptors so that I'm saying to HTTP interceptor, whatever request goes from this application, you add this token to it and send it. Rather than for every request we go into the header and adding, just if we add this token to the HTTP headers, it will take care of adding the token for every request. So it will be more simplified for us. And in the backend, what we need to do is we need to decode this token, and we normally used to take the username and password from the token, and we find it whether he is authorized to serve that request. And if he is found authorized, we will serve the request. If not found authorized, we will say that you are not a authorized person to receive this request. So let me show you how I have done in my sample application. So this is my sample application. So what I have done is if you go to the app modules, you can see this in the providers. I have told for HTTP interceptor use my class. Okay, I'm saying HTTP interceptor use this class. In this class, what I have added that intercept logic, so that for every request, it also adds this user.auth data. This auth data is nothing but the username and password combined, and I do some base 64 encoding. Okay, how I derive this? Yes, if you want to understand how I derive this, can go to my login service. Here I would have done the generation for this auth data. I get the username and password, I combine it and I encode it using window.btoa. Okay, this auth data I save it in local storage. Okay, and this auth data I'm sending it in every request using HTTP interceptors. That's what we saw here. So in the HTTP interceptors, we just use this auth data, and I'm setting the header called authorization header in every request. I'm just whatever request goes out, I'm asking it to add this header, authorization header with this data. I'm asking it to go out. So you can see it in every request. Maybe I give maybe login. And if I go and do this, right, network employee list, get employees, you can see this header going out. So this is the header which I'm setting and sending it to the server. So here I actually use a node server. The node server, what it will do is, this is my code for that. Node server, what it will do is, it will just do a basic authentication. Here it will just check for basic authentication. It is inside users, no, helpers, basic authentication. It will just try to decode whatever I send. I sent it with base and some encoded code, right? If you see here, you can know that basic and some encoded code. So what I do is, here if I don't get this, first I'm getting this. I'm not doing this for login page. And I'm checking whether authorization header is present. If it is not present, I will just simply say missing authorization header and send the error. If I am having the authorization header, I split it. Okay, I decode it with base HT4, and from that I'm getting username and password. That username password I will check in my maybe in my database whether whether he is a proper user. If he's not a proper user, I will send a error called invalid authenticated credentials. If he is found to be a authorized user, then I will proceed with the request whatever he asks for. Okay, this is how I do it in my node service. Okay, so this you can see. After this, it will go to all for serving all other requests. But if it gets rejected here, it will just go to the front end. Okay, so this should be in the top. Okay. So this is about this. So that's what I have mentioned here. The front end, you have to add an authorization token. We use HTTP interceptor to add the token for all requests. And backend, if it is a login page, no authorization. If if not check for we have to authorize token, we have to decode to get the username password, and we have to find whether is the proper username password. If he is found to be a authorized user, then send data, else send error. Okay. Let's move on to the next question. So how to make all your requests send a token in a header? So I already mentioned we use HTTP interceptor. Interceptor is something which is in the middle. Before the request goes out to the backend, we intercept the request using HTTP interceptors. Okay. For doing that, we just need to add this class, basic, maybe whatever name. This service you need to add basic auth interceptor service.ts. This service need to be added, and it has to implement from HTTP interceptors. Okay, and you have to write the logic for adding the token in the intercept function. Okay, and using the HTTP handler. Okay, this is the request and this is the handler. Okay, in the request you just simply add the set headers. Simply set the header, and using the handler you pass the request on to the next hop, maybe to the backend. Maybe you can have a queue of interceptors. Here I have only one interceptor, so it will go to the backend. So first you have to add this function, basic service. You have to add this service for adding the logic for adding the header, and for letting the Angular know about this interceptor service. You have to add this in app modules. App modules. So you add it in the providers for letting Angular know. You just add it in the providers in app module. So you simply say for HTTP interceptors, you use my service what I have written. So when you add this, whenever the data, the request is going to move out, it will intercept that request with this service. Okay. So this is about intercepting your request using HTTP interceptors. Okay, hope you understood. You have to add this and add it to the providers. Okay, question and answers for this Angular modules. So here we'll be seeing around 6 question and answers. Okay, so let's move on to the first question. How to create a new module? To create a new module, it is very simple. You have to just go here, give ng generate module and module you want to create. Yes, sample module maybe. If you give like this, it will create a module for you. So let's wait for it to get created. It got created. Then let's move on to source. So let's, if you see the module which got created, you can see it here. So this is the module which got created. So this is how the module it has created for us. Uh, so by default, it would have imported common module for us because for any module we need a common module, and we it will also have created a ng module metadata decorator to say this sample module as a module. So it would have also added ng module for us. So from this we can create our own module. Okay. We can add our own components inside the module. Whatever we want, we can add it to the declaration and use this module. And for using this module in our main app, main to add this module to our application, you have to import it in the imports of app module. Okay. So just we need to add the sample module into this thing. For using this, maybe you added a component inside this sample module. For using that component, you can add this module into this app module. We can just simply add that, maybe sample module, can add that. And for using the component, what I have added here, you can export that component. Okay, you can export that component, which I want it to be used in the main module. That module component can be exported from here so that it will be available here. Whatever is exported from this module will be available in the main module because we have imported this module. Okay, sample module. So let's move on to the next question. This is how we create a new module. Okay, normally a big application, we will based on functionality we will divide it into many modules. Maybe your application has employee related code, that will be in employee module, and student related code, it will be student module. Likewise we will divide. Okay, so this is how you do. How to import new module to root module? You just have to add it as we added it here. We have to add that module to imports. Once we add it, what all components are exported from this module will be available from our app module to use. If you have a login component here, maybe login component, you have added it to this, that will be available for you in app module to use since you have exported that component. What all you exported will only be available in the app components. Now the the main application can make use of this login component. Okay, something like this. This login component I've also imported it somewhere. It is part of main module. I think you can't do it now. Okay. So the next question is, So how to make the components of the new module, make it available to the root module. So you have to add it to the exports. Okay, I can show you that. Maybe what I will do, I will add another component now. I will add another component, ngGenerate component, sample component. So this will be added to the main module, but I want it to be part of sample module. So what I will do is I will remove it from this declarations of app module. Okay, this is what we created, right? So this is what we created now. So let's what I will do, I will remove it from the root module. Root module. So I will remove it from the sample component. I removed it from the declaration of this. And you also can remove the imports here. It is unnecessary. And I will add it to the sample module what we created. We have created this sample module. So here in the declaration I will add this sample component and I will export that sample component from here so that it is available to use in the main module. Okay, so since I've exported it and I also imported this module in main app modules, since I've imported it in the main apps module, this component will be available for to use in the main app modules. Okay, so you can try to use that. Maybe this is the HTML of it. Just copy this selector and you use it in the home page. So let us try to verify it whether it works. So I will add the selector in the main home page which is available under the main app module. So you can see that here the home page, okay, is available under the main app modules. Okay, so I added the selector inside home page now. So we should see this component now. We should see sample component words. Let us see whether it is working. So it is. Let us see whether it works. We are not seeing any errors, and if you go down, you are able to see we are able to render the component. But if you have not exported that from sample modules, right, it will not work. It will not know what is that because that is not exported from that module. If I remove it from the exports, right, it will not work. Let's see now whether we should be seeing an error here saying I don't know what it is app sample component because that is not exported from the module we imported. Sample module we imported, it has not exported this app sample component. So Angular, the main application will not be able to understand what it is. So this is about importing the components, using the components of the new module in the root module. Okay, you just have to add it to the exports of the newly added module. What is a eagerly loaded module? Eagerly loaded module is something that uh, this module, right, will be loaded whether we use it or not. Whether the user goes to the route or not, this module will be loaded. That is eagerly loaded module. When the user first starts up, when he first logs in, tries to goes to the website itself, this module will be made a part of the main.js file. Okay, so that is about eagerly loaded modules. This can be used in case of modules which you think will always be part of the employee, the application, always the part of your application, like login module, the authentication module, which the user always may need for logging inside the application. Maybe you have some other modules like employee module, student module, which you don't know whether the user will access it or not. You can go for lazy loaded module. Eagerly loaded is you always need this module. Now whatever we added, right, the sample module, it is a eagerly loaded module because we have added it directly to the imports. You are seeing that whatever modules you are adding directly to the imports are eagerly loaded modules. Since we have added this module to this, it is a eagerly loaded module. When the user comes inside the application, tries to access the application itself, it will be loaded. Okay. So if you see the main package file, you will see that main.js file, which is the main module bundle file. You will see sample.component added with this. See, you are able to see. So you are able to see the sample bundle is added with the main bundle file. Okay, so this is about eagerly loaded. These modules will be made as part of the main bundle file. So let's move on to the next question. This is about eagerly loaded. It is always loaded. It will be a part of main.ts file. It will not be separately asked for. Separate. It will not be loaded separately. Okay, it will be always part of main.ts file, the main bundle file. So this is about eagerly loaded file. Okay. What is lazy loaded? Lazy loaded module is required in case of modules which you don't know whether the user will use it or not. So those types of module, it is preferable to go for lazy loaded. Okay. So in such cases, it will not be this type of modules will not be part of the main bundle file, but it will be asked for only when the user tries to retrieve that route. Maybe only when the user goes for /employee, then only the employee module will be loaded. Okay, understand? Mainly when the user asks for that particular route, this lazy loaded modules will be loaded. So I will give you an example for this. I have something called authentication module. Okay, the authentication module which has the login and logout components as a part of it, which I have tried to load it lazily. So if you see, this is the authentication module. The login component is part of it. Okay. And other thing you need to understand is when you add a route for your submodules, you have to always use not router module dot for route, but you have to use for child, and you have to add your routes. Okay. And this is almost same how you create it is almost same. What differs is you should not add it to the imports, but you have to add it differently. Here authoring module, right, if you go to the main module file, you will see that the authentication module is not added as a part of imports. Okay, not a part of imports, but you should all the authentic lazy loader module should not be a part of imports, but you should load it only when the user asks for it. So whenever the user asks for login, I will load this authentication module. For that, you have to use load children and the path, relative path of where it is located. It is located inside modules, authentication module, and this is the name of the class file, authentication module. Okay, name of the module file. So you have to load it in this way. Okay, all the lazy loaded modules. Okay, it should understand that it should never be, I am reiterating, it should be never be part of imports. It should be loaded when only when the user asks for that particular route. So you have to put it like load children and then the relative path and the name of the module. Okay, this is how you have to load it, and you have to remove all the imports which points to the authentication module. Maybe this is not needed. I will remove it. Okay. Try to remove all the imports because it should be all loaded lazily. Okay. So let's go to the application now. See that. Okay. We can remove that error we created. If you go to the home page, we'll remove this because we have not exported. So we are getting this error. Let's do this. When you go for login, right? That's when that module is loaded. You will see a big difference. See, when you go for sources here, you will see the authentication module is not part of the main bundle. It is loaded separately. Okay, you see that? It's not part of main bundle, but it is loaded separately. And if you search for authentication module here, you will not be able to find it. See, you are not able to find it. See, so it will be only part of this one. You will have it as a separate file. It will not be part of main bundle. But when you go for something other than login, right? Maybe I'm go for home employee list. You will not find this module itself. See, that module is not loaded because that module will be loaded only when required, when the user goes to that particular route. Okay. This is about lazy loaded module. Okay. Let's go to the next question. This can be give you it can give you a performance improvement also because we don't unnecessarily load which is not required. Okay. So other differences when difference between router module.forRoot and router module.forChild. The difference is router module.forRoot we use it only in the main bundle, that is app module, and for child we use it for all the sub modules. We have to use for child. Okay, sub modules or lazy loader modules will use for child and for root only for the main bundle file. Okay, that is the this one app modules, right? That only will be using this for root, and for child will be used all for all the sub modules or lazy loaded modules. So this is about the questions we have for this topic. So moving on to the first question. Before building answering the questions, I would like to explain the project I will be using for answering the questions in deployment, Angular deployment. So this is a simple Angular project. Okay, if I have served that project and you will be able to see this is the simple project. Whatever you see, This is the output this project displays. Okay, when I try to access it using localhost 4200. So let me move on to the questions. So I didn't keep this project very complex, so that this is just for understanding deployment. Okay, this example. So how to deploy an Angular application? So for deploying Angular application, first you have to build it. Okay, even when you do ngserve, it builds it, but it builds it to main.js and it puts it into in its own Webpack dev server. Okay, ngserve also it tries to build and it tries to put that package in the this development web server which the Angular CLI has by default. So if you see here in the ngserve also builds, so you can see the bundle file. This is the bundle file. It and it puts the bundle file into that distribution and send it and deploys the Webpack dev server. But we are not able to see that main.js in our project anywhere. That is not displayed. That is concealed from us basically. But when we want to deploy for production, we want to have that bundle file with us so that we can put it into our own server, maybe Tomcat server or Node server. For that, we have to build it. We should have that bundle file. So to have that bundle file, what we have to do is we have to run something called ngbuild. So this will use in Webpack, it will build the application. The Webpack config file it uses also is concealed from us. So it builds, okay, using the default configuration for Webpack, it starts with index.html and moves across whatever is required. So when we do ngbuild, right, it builds the application and puts it into distribution. Let's wait for it to load, okay, for it to build. Now it has completed building the project for us. Now the bundle should be available inside distribution. So this is where it will create the bundle file. So I will open it, the Explorer. So inside distribution, you will see the bundle file. This is the bundle file, and inside this you will see this is all the files required for the application to run. Okay, and the main bundle file which has all the development code is this main ES 2015.js. So this will contain all our bundles which I have written. Okay, and one thing you will notice here that it is not minified. Okay, but for production we used to minify so that HP performance improves, the size improves. Okay, but this is not minified. Okay. So if I want to deploy it into any server, what I will do, I will copy this and put it in the Tomcat web app maybe or Node server. You put it inside, you copy this folder to Node server and make this folder as static for deploying it. So you can use this bundle for deploying your application. I will explain you how we can deploy Node server as a last question. Okay. So this is about deployment. How to deploy this will create the bundle file and you have to use this bundle file in any server you want to deploy. Next question, how to enable minification in the bundle? You have to use something called build production. When you build it in this manner, it will also minify the files. Let me do that. Prod. If I do it like this, it will minify also the bundle, so the file size will reduce. Let us wait for it to complete bundling. Now it has completed bundling. Let us go to the distribution file. Okay. Let's see whether it is minified. Okay, let me open this file, Reveal Explorer, and I go into that file. And you can see many files is reduced here. And let me go to this file, the main file. You can see it is completely minified. Okay. it has reduced all the spaces, right? And it reduces, and it also does many things. The prod, when you run it with prod, we will see it in the next question. Okay, you can see it how minified it has made it. Okay, so this should be used when we do for production, so the performance improves and unnecessary calls also gets reduced. Okay, so this is about minification. You have to run it with prod. And what does ng build prod do? It does a couple of things. It does AOT compilations. It pre-compiles the Angular component templates, deploys it in production mode, and concatenates into a few bundles. It also reduces the files. Okay. It minifies this VC. Amplification is rewrites the code to use short and cryptic variable, and it reduces also the dead code. Whatever code is not used, that also is reduced. It removes the unreferenced modules and many unused code. So these are the things the ng build prod does. Okay. So this may be a very important question. The last question is how to deploy to node server. To deploy to a node server, what we have to do is we will just copy this distribution, right? Inside distribution we have the bundle file. Just copy this bundle file, and I have a node server for a simple node server which I will be showing hosting in. So let me go to the node. So I have written a simple file for serving the bundle. So let me delete whatever is present, and I will copy this bundle. Okay, and I will also open this node.js for you to see. Actually, we open folder, node, Angular hosting. So this is the simple server I wrote. It has some around 10 lines, which is just uses Express to serve the web files, to start the web server. Okay, so I have already pasted the my app for inside this folder. So the Express web server, what it has to do, it has to use this folder and serve whatever is been present in that folder. Okay, for doing that, what I have to do is I have to edit this as my app 4. I have to make this static. Okay, you have to add something called app.use express.static my app 4. Once you add it, it will start deploying the bundle. Okay, the node server will start deploying the bundle, and whenever a route comes, it will redirect to this bundle. Okay, whenever you put the localhost 80, 82, it will go to this bundle route. That is, it will start routing the index.html. Okay, let me start this server also. Maybe I will go to node server, node Angular hosting, and just start this server. And it has started in 8082. Here also you should be able to see the application now, since we have deployed it in a node server. This is what you saw it in localhost 4200. Let me open the node server now. Localhost 8082. That's where it is running. When you do that also, you should be able to see the application. And here you see the application. So we have successfully deployed our Angular application into a node server. Likewise, we can do it for any server, Tomcat server or any other server. Thank you guys. Don't forget to subscribe to get my future videos. Thank you. Have a nice day.